The 23rd meeting of the 23rd Council will please come to order. All council members will be present this evening. At this time, we will have a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Councilor Jones. Thank you, Councilor Jones. Civic Plaza parking passes are provided for members of the public. You can obtain a parking pass from the council staff at the sign-up table. The council will take a dinner break this evening at approximately 7 p.m. And we want tonight's proceedings to be as civil and as respectful as possible. Please do not make any personal attacks, and please no applause or outbursts during the meeting. The meeting will go much smoother if we are respectful of one another. And also this evening, I will provide one warning to anyone causing a disruption. Upon the second or continued disruption, that individual will be asked to leave the chambers, and if necessary, security will be asked to escort those individuals out of the chambers. Let's go and move on to item 3, that is proclamations and presentations. That is myself and Councilor Borrego. And this proclamation is recognizing the Petroglyph National Monument, its contribution to Albuquerque, and accepting the proclamation this evening is Denise Vasquez.
Dennis.
Dennis Vasquez, please come to the podium.
And David Simon.
And David Simon is also here. Welcome.
Thank you.
And the proclamation reads that both Councilor Borrego and I will be reading this. Whereas the Petroglyph National Monument emerged from the volcanic activity caused by a geographic rock formation known as the Rio Grande Rift, resulted in the Western Albuquerque Escarpment, which has provided protection and hunting grounds to Native communities for over 3,000 years to represent an emerging and evolving southwestern land identity. And whereas the Petroglyph National Monument depicts pictorially a cultural and historical record of profound spiritual significance for the Native Americans and descendants of early Spanish settlers, and whereas the Petroglyph National Monument provides green space, trails, outdoor classrooms, and countless educational and recreational opportunities for the people of Albuquerque,
and whereas the Petroglyph National Monument preserves open space for native and beneficial plant species and wildlife, and whereas the Petroglyph National Monument characterizes how a landscape shapes and influences human welfare and behavior, and continues to inspire the people of Albuquerque and its visitors to the rich geological, archaeological, and ecological gifts of the Southwest. And whereas the Petroglyph National Monument is managed and protected by the National Park Service in cooperation with the City of Albuquerque Parks and Recreation Open Space Division, be it proclaimed that the Council, the governing body of the City of Albuquerque, hereby recognizes the Petroglyph National Monument as a national treasure and a prized asset and gem of the City of Albuquerque and Albuquerque Council Districts 1 and 5. And I would love to have Dennis Vasquez, who's the Superintendent of the National Park Service, U.S. Department of the Interior, and also David Simon, the Director of the City Parks and Recreation Department, if you'd like to say a few words.
go and proceed.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the National Park Service and the staff at Petroglyph National Monument, we're very honored to receive this proclamation and also very honored and grateful to manage this national treasure in partnership with the City of Albuquerque.
Mr. President, Councilor Borrego, thank you so much for this lovely statement of importance for the monument. I would say that we're very blessed in our city to have a unit of the National Park System, and we're also very blessed to have a terrific superintendent of that unit. I would also say I think that the great collaboration that's currently the case between the two agencies is a lot of it is due to the great staff work, Dennis leading his staff and our staff who spent many, many hours together working together to improve the management and protection of the monument, and I am very optimistic about the future for this great park unit and city asset. So thank you so much for this recognition.
Thank you, and come on up and receive the proclamation. We now have employee recognition awards, and that is going to be presented by Councilor Pena, and I believe Councilor Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you know, we started this recognition program, I don't even remember how long ago, Stephanie. It's been probably about a year now. And this is, you know, employees being recognized by their peers, and the average citizen, whoever turns in a nomination, and I'm sorry, I lost my notes. And so anyway, employees that go above and beyond the call of duty, you know, sometimes all of us when we're at work, you know, sometimes we just go a little bit above, and people need to be recognized for that. This is a program that we've mirrored after what we've done at the Water Authority, and recognized lots of their employees for doing like things. So anyway, with that, apologize, I lost my notes. Do we have Lario Canales? Can he come forward, please, if he's here? As you're walking to the podium, after Officer Lario Canales' young daughter had recently beaten leukemia, he saw a television news story about an Artesia police officer, Anthony Heedy, and his 6-year-old son that was recently diagnosed with leukemia. Knowing what the Heedy family was going through, Officer Canales went store to store, and in 3 days collected $1,500 in gift cards for Officer Heedy and his family. The Health and Wellness Program helps employees take care of themselves, but Officer Canales has extended that with his kindness to support others in the community. Officer Canales had stressed that this isn't a story about two police officers sharing the same battle, but about two fathers bonded by the love of their children. Congratulations. Did you want to say a couple of words?
I just wanted to say thank you. I'm grateful and honored to be receiving this award and this recognition. So thank you very much.
What a heartwarming story, especially right before Thanksgiving. Come up and accept the award. And the next recipient is Michael Berry, if you can come up. Michael's 8 years at Manzano Mesa Multi-Generational Center has resulted in numerous positive interactions with seniors and youth that visit the center. Michael's interactions with mentally and physically challenged clients is truly something to behold. He has always He has always and always shakes or hugs the hands of people that makes them feel special in their own way. All clients gravitate towards Michael, and he has befriended many. Michael's coworkers greatly admire what he does for the center and the clients on an everyday basis. Congratulations, Michael. Did you want to?
Thank you.
If you want to, Michael, why don't you wait there, and let's go ahead and give all the recipients their awards and have you come up all at one time. So just go and hold on. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Gibson.
Thank you. Chris Rael, is Chris here? Okay, great. While on a call, Officer Chris Rael was approached by excited kids showing off their bicycles. Officer Rael noticed that that a bike was missing key parts, including the seat and a pedal. After completing his call, the children's excitement over the broken bicycle stayed with Chris. On his days off, he rallied his friends, family, and neighborhood to purchase and collect bikes of all sizes, as well as helmets and accessories. Officer Rael then took the bikes to the apartment complex and distributed them to the children there. The children in the community were overjoyed with Officer Rael's show of generosity and caring. What a great story. Thank you so much. We have one more.
Any comments, officer?
Yes, I just wanted to, thank everybody for giving me the opportunity to serve my community, and thank my family and friends for making it possible to make it happen. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the next one is for Kathleen Williams and Denise Lopez. Are they here? There they are. Kathleen and Denise were driving a senior affairs van when the car ahead of them suddenly pulled over and a woman jumped out. Visibly upset, she started walking down the street and was followed by a gentleman from the same vehicle. Kathleen and Denise noticed that she was heavily bruised and upset. They asked if she needed to get into the van for protection. She explained she wanted her car keys back from the man. They retrieved the woman's keys and helped her to her car, where she got in and drove off. After she left, they made sure the gentleman was okay and suggested he go to the Barella Senior Center if he needed assistance. Thank you so much. Thank you for paying attention and helping someone in need.
Do you want to say a couple of words? Yeah.
Well, come down and get your plaques.
And come on up and get your plaques and awards. We have a little one in the back of the room that was applauding and cheering. I've never seen anybody so excited at a city council meeting. Okay, let's move on to Leslie Richards, the Executive Director of the Shakespeare on the Plaza Festival. She's here tonight to present a small recognition to the council. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the Vortex Theater, its 100 seasonal employees, and the over 4,200 attendees of Shakespeare on the Plaza 2018, it is my pleasure to present the City Council with this recognition in thanks for the City Council's generous support in 2018.
Thank you. That's kind of nice. Every time there's a presentation for the council or an award, it's kept brief. Okay, we are under item number 5, administrative question and answers. Councilors, are there any questions for the administration? Seeing none, let's move on to item 6. That is the journal. Council Vice President Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move approval of the last meeting's journal.
We have a motion and a second for the approval of the November 5th journal. All those in favor signify by saying yes. Yes, those opposed say no. That carries unanimously. We are now under communications and introductions. Are there any changes to the letter of introduction? Council Vice President Harris.
I move approval of the letter of introduction.
We have a motion and a second for the approval of the letter of introduction. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes, those opposed say no. That carries unanimously. We are now on item 8, reports of committee. Councilor Borrego.
Mr. President and councilors and public, I'm going to wing it because I didn't get that little attachment in my packet. So there was a LUPS committee meeting on 11/14/18 on Wednesday, last Wednesday. And there was one item on the agenda, and I don't have the item number. So, Donna, do you have that item number?
Ms. Yarra, do you want to go and read that?
Yes, Mr. President, Councilor Borrego, the item number was R1887.
Thank you. So in the matter of R-887, that it be recommended to the City Council without recommendation, I make a motion to accept the committee reports.
We have a motion and a second to accept the committee report. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying yes. Yes, those opposed say no. That carries unanimously. We are now on the consent agenda. Well, deferrals and withdrawals. Councilors, are there any deferrals or withdrawals at this time? Seeing none, let's move to item 9, the consent agenda. Are there any changes to the consent agenda? And for those individuals on tonight's consent agenda who are being appointed to serve on a board or commission, please stand at this time and be recognized if you're in the audience. Thank you for your willingness to serve in the city government. Appreciate all your service. And I will turn it over to Councilor Harris for the motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move approval of the consent agenda.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Borrego for approval of the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying yes. Yes, those opposed say no. That carries unanimously. And we are going to go to item 14. Councilor Benton, that is O-43.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move a due pass on O-43.
We have a motion and a second.
This is authorizing the issuance and sale of City of Albuquerque Industrial Revenue Bond Series 2018 for the Tascus project in the maximum principal amount of $5,998,000 to provide funds to finance the acquisition and installation of an industrial revenue project.
Second.
We've already got the motion and a second. Are there any individuals signed up from the public to speak on this agenda item? We are back on the bill. Are there any questions from this council? Councilor Benton to close.
Just for those who may have been out of the country for the last several months, Tascus is a great addition coming to or already in our downtown, but making a big investment in Albuquerque, and good high-paying jobs, and it's going to be in the First Plaza Galleria building, which our local investor, Ed Garcia, has purchased and is renovating for the purpose. So these will be good, as was said, long-term jobs for Albuquerque. I urge your support.
We have a motion and a second for approval of O-43. All those in favor signify by saying yes. Yes, those opposed say no. That carries unanimously. We are now under general public comment. There will be a 2-minute time limit. The light at the podium will be green for the first minute and a half. Then a bell will ring and the light will turn yellow, indicating you have 30 seconds remaining. At the 2-minute time limit, the bell will turn red and the bell will ring once again, indicating that your time has expired. I will call the first 5 names, and once your name has been called, please come to the front. There is seating available for you, and be prepared to speak. The first speaker is Don Schrader. followed by Rowan Wymark, followed by Downey X, followed by Leonard Waits, followed by Joanne Fine.
We all can be hero to some and sadly villain to others. Does Trump have anyone close to him who cares enough, has conscience and courage to confront him on his lies, racism, severe money addiction, and evil actions? If anyone could have told Daniel Ortega 35 years ago, when he was hero to millions of poor in Central America, that now, as president of Nicaragua, he would kill demonstrators, how could he have believed it? Many white slave owners dearly loved their children, but they bought, sold, and horribly abused black people as slaves. Many Nazis warmly hugged their children, but on the job, they mass murdered Jews. Many scientists at Sandia Labs are kind to their next door neighbors, but on the job, they design weapons of mass murder targeting our neighbors abroad. Barbara and H.W. Bush apparently had an exceptionally loving 73-year marriage. When H.W. Bush was U.S. president, he murdered many people in the Gulf War. Did Barbara have any conscience against his murders? Did she ever confront him? We all need to hold each other accountable. Always confront me when I wrong others.
Thank you. Next speaker, Rowan Wymark. Go ahead and proceed. Yes.
I actually know someone called Rowan. It's not me. I'm here. Oh, Mr. President, council members, I'm here yet again. I was here a few months before to address the issue of Mr. Edward Harness. I find it very difficult to believe that not renewing his contract is even being considered, because, as I said before, and I'll say it again, when the mayor appointed Chief Gaia, he said he didn't want to have somebody coming in from another part of the country who is not familiar with the DOJ, not familiar with the CASA, not familiar with any of the process. To not renew Mr. Harness's contract is going to be changing horses midstream, and that would be extremely detrimental. And the other thing is, as a CPC chair, I've had pretty direct experience of Mr. Harness, and I have not been anything but impressed by his professionalism, his knowledge, and his courtesy, and his general demeanor. And so I'm just sorry that it's even under consideration and that it's taken this long to even come to the point where you're voting on it again. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Downey X, followed by Leonard Waits, followed by Joanne Fine. And again, once your name has been called, if you would come to the front and be prepared to speak, there is seating available for you.
I could only watch in pain as Mayor Keller twisted himself like a pretzel, trying to make heads or tails of this catastrophe called ART. ART, also known as another ripoff of the taxpayers, has turned out to be exactly that, a big fat ripoff. This misguided disaster will cost the taxpayer an estimated $300 million. So, who is going to be held accountable for this rolling dumpster fire? Who of you on this city council that voted for this boondoggle will grow a spine and take responsibility for killing Route 66? None of you, I'm sure. Nob Hill is dying. The businesses are hemorrhaging money just to keep the doors open. Your failed transit project will eventually cost a lot of people their livelihoods. Your ill-conceived, money giveaway economic development projects seem to all fail. So yeah, leave the lights on those useless bus platforms at night. So when you city councilors drive by, you can take a look at your monumental failure when you drive by there at night. Cha-ching, cha-ching. Those of you who voted for this disaster, you should immediately step down. You have abdicated your responsibility to the citizens of Albuquerque. In closing, I would like to thank all of my brothers and sisters that fought this doomed project from the start. Never give up the fight when you know you're right.
Next speaker, Leonard Waits. Welcome, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. President, Councilman, good evening. I'm Leonard Waits, the Chair of Police Oversight Board. I've been a volunteer for the oversight for the last 6 years and worked alongside Council Members Winter and Garduño in establishing the city ordinance now governing the oversight process in Albuquerque. The innovative collaborative work done to establish this ordinance was exceptional and in fact preceded the CASA. Since that time, the POB has counted on the council for unanticipated needs to accomplish this mission. For example, early on, we realized we needed our own lawyer, not a city attorney, to advise us on matters at issue with the city, and also to avoid any propriety or appearance of impropriety. The council made those funds available. Since the CASA was signed, there have been conflicts between the CASA and the city ordinance. Example includes the use of mediation, how independence is defined in each instance, and the value of subpoena power in oversight. In June of this year, we submitted to you suggested changes to the city ordinance to bring it into compliance with the CASA. Also in June this year, having completed the annual evaluation of the executive director, we submitted a letter to the council president requesting that the 3-year contract for Ed Harness be renewed, as it was set to expire in October 2018. The evaluation process included board members, staff, CPC members, amici members, and other stakeholders. The evaluation was very favorable and led to a unanimous vote of POB to retain Mr. Harness and seek a raise for him, which he has not received.
Your time has expired. Thank you. Joanne Fine? Okay.
Which he had not received since he was hired in October of 2015. We have also shared our concerns with council about 3 vacancies in the 9-seat board, with an additional 2 seats set to expire in February of 2019. To date, we have not received notice of when these seats will be filled or reconfirmed. This places an extremely heavy burden on the POB, the few in this process who are volunteers. We are concerned that these 3 issues may be part of a larger effort to control, politicize, or diminish the involvement of civilians in bringing constitutional policing to Albuquerque. While we applaud the council's initial vision, we are worried about 3 important things which threaten our mission: the contract status of our independent executive director, the continued conflicts between the ordinance and the CASA, and the choice to not fill or confirm a full complement of POB board members. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter Simonson, followed by Dorothy Woodward, followed by Bernadette Garcia de Rodriguez, followed by Simon Polakowski, and the last speaker will be Andreas Mata. Welcome, Mr. Simonson.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. Thank you for receiving my comments this evening. My name is Peter Simonson. I'm the executive director for the ACLU of New Mexico. I'm also, our organization is also a member of APD Forward, a coalition of roughly two dozen organizations from around the city that represent segments of our community that have been affected by the police department's past pattern of excessive use of force. I sat on the task force that was assigned to try and make proposals to reform the Police Oversight Commission a couple of years ago, and I think that the results of those reforms have given this city a police oversight body that we should all be proud of here in Albuquerque. It's compared to many such bodies around the country. It exercises a great deal of independence. It not only reviews officer complaints, but also looks at patterns of problems with inside of the department, as well as examines policy issues. And it's staffed by incredibly skilled staff. It has dedicated volunteers working on our behalf. In reforming that police oversight body, the task force knew it was really increasing the workload of that agency, and as a result, decided to expand the size of the board to 9 people. As I understand it, we currently only have 3 of those positions are currently vacant, and they have remained vacant for quite some time now. I would just urge the council to move as quickly as possible in filling those vacancies so that the body can actually carry out all of the work that's assigned to it. I will also be addressing Mr. Harness's contract when we reach that item on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Dorothy Woodward. Welcome.
Welcome. President Sanchez and council members. I am a member of the District 4 Coalition. I'm a member of the District 4 Coalition and the Northeast Area Community Policing Council. But today I stand before you as a private citizen, a member of this community, to state my support for the renewal of the contract for Mr. Harness. Since the spring of 2016, I have actively observed and followed Mr. Harness's work, specifically what he has done with and for POB and CPC. Like other residents, I vividly recall the years of dysfunction and fallout of the previous oversight agency. Because of Mr. Harness's work, I have witnessed the much needed positive change to POA and POB. He conducts his responsibilities with integrity, patience, and fairness. When his advice is sought, he offers clarity with an unbiased attitude of support and encouragement. In performing his duties to help the city move forward in the settlement agreement, Mr. Harness attends CPC meetings and APD Compliance Bureau meetings, and he serves as a facilitator for our CPC summits and presents statements before Judge Brack during hearings and status conferences. I know this. I know this because I attend these meetings. I am confident that Mr. Harness is right for the job and should continue. Thank you.
Next speaker, Bernadette Garcia de Rodriguez.
Good evening, council members. Thank you for inviting the open dialogue. I am a member of the Barelas Community Coalition right here downtown. Just wanted to thank our council member, Isaac Benton, for continuously working with us in partnership on many projects. There was a presentation by the City of Albuquerque Planning Department in regard to the rail yard redevelopment at our latest board meeting. And there was recently some discussion and follow-up by community members, and I just wanted to address that in terms of providing a little bit more insight of what Barelas Community Coalition does. So we do not work in a silo. We work with other organizations within our community with the Barelas Neighborhood Association, who deals with police reports, special projects within the community, filming that goes on. We also deal with the Barelas, Casa de Barelas, who works with art projects, community projects, computer after-school programs for the kids, community projects, and then we ourselves deal with the redevelopment and advocacy against gentrification in our neighborhood, amongst many other things. And in collaborating together on those projects, we come together to serve the diverse needs of our community. Although our community has been known to be very vocal, we are very organized, and we also are in favor of the rail yards reaching out to us, or you guys reaching out to us for the rail yards, and look forward to continue partnership with you and for open forum for community insight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker is Simon Polakowski, and the last speaker on general public comment will be Andres Mata.
Council President, Council, if you public is still in charge of public access, a continuous fraud is being committed upon the city. This non-compliance has been going on for a year and continues to go on. This is fraud. Again, I urge immediate termination of their contract with the city. The mayor sent back the buses because they didn't fulfill what they were supposed to do. We should do the same with management of public access. This is, also I'd like to suggest to the mayor that he send his ADA advisement committee to check out 519 Central. That is where public access is located. I would like to see how somebody who is maybe wheelchair bound or on crutches can actually go up the stairs. There's no elevator in that building. That this building was bought by the prior administration is a fraud. Is an insult to the taxpayers who paid good money for not. This should be investigated. And again, they're in non-compliance for a year. The people need a public access to confront the issues that they're concerned with here in Albuquerque. Art, police oversight, Justice Department with the police, many, many things. Also, this art is stranded. It's just this thing that sits in the middle of the city. We've got to figure something out what to do with this. This is a terrible sore on this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Andreas Mata. Come on down. Go and proceed.
Good evening, men and women of the council. My name is Andres Benito Mata. I'm a resident of Barelas, and I wish to speak on the appointment of Mrs. Ernestine Nunez Jaramillo to the Senior Affairs Advisory Council. Upon my first moving here to Albuquerque, I was asked by my family to join our familiar caretaking team in caring for my grandfather, for whom I am named as well, my grandmother, as well as when it was their last days. I was blessed to have such an involved family handle the estate, as well as their state of convalescence, giving them the love and dignified care they deserved. I believe that Ernestine has the passion and experience to fight for the rights of seniors, so that their dignity, well-being, and security do not take a backseat to the abuse and neglect of our elderly for monetary purposes. It is truly remarkable to see someone still involved in the community they grew up in. My only objection is cautioning Mayor Culler and the council from the reference to the Barelas Community Coalition in the appointment memo. I have emailed Councilor Bentham that I believe the BCC in its current form does not constitute an advocacy group for the Barelas community. I believe it is a special interest group. Its current form is an umbrella and fiscal sponsor for the rail yard market, whose entrance is located away from the neighborhood. It is open generally on a Sunday near our neighborhood, whose businesses are closed on Sundays during the hours of 10 to 2, when our traditional families are attending religious services, then having lunch together. I am not against the development of the rail yards market nor the BCC, and have offered them my services, to which they declined. I would love to help them get in touch with the community it has ostracized in the process, but at the cost of the ear of the city being misled to believe they're in communication with the true interests and issues of Barelas, I respectfully object to Ernestine's status as a board member, being an advocacy qualifier in her appointment to this advisory council. She is more than qualified for this appointment, but my community struggles are not to be ignored further. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes general public comments. We are now under announcements. Councilor Pena.
Thank you, Mr. President. There will be a Finance and Government Operations Committee meeting Monday, the 26th at 5 p.m. in the Council Committee Room on the 9th floor.
Thank you, Councilor Pena. And in observance of the Thanksgiving holiday, the Water Utility Authority meeting has been rescheduled to Tuesday, December the 4th at 5 p.m. in the Vincent E. Gringo Chambers. We are now under general public comment. That is item 12, and that is AC 13. Nora State Neighborhood Association appeals the decision of the Development Review Board. This appeal has been withdrawn by the applicant. I move withdrawal. This agenda item, we have a motion and a second. Any questions? See none, all those in favor signify by saying yes. Yes, those opposed say no. That carries unanimously. And now we are under item 13, and that is approvals. And it is item A, OC-8, that is the renewal of contract with Mr. Edward Harness, Director of the Civilian Oversight Agency. Do I have a motion for confirmation? We have a motion by Councilor Benton and a second by Councilor Davis. The council's authority in this matter is limited to confirmation of the CPOA director per the recommendations of the Police Oversight Board. While the POB appears to be recommending certain terms of the director's contract, those matters are not before the council this evening. According to this motion, this confirmation of Director Harness is limited, but is not in any way dealing with this contract this evening. Okay, we have a motion and a second for confirmation. We have 4 individuals that are signed up to speak. That is Leonard Waits, Joanne Fine, Peter Simonson, and Judith Minks. And again, once your name has been called, please come to the front and be prepared to speak.
Thank you, Council President. Again, my name is Leonard Waits. I'm the POB chair. Is the CPOA an independent agency or a city agency? Is the CPOA's executive director independent of the city or a city employee? The CPOA, POB, and the city have been dancing around the issue of independence for nearly 4 years. The definitions seems to have changed depending on the issue. To be clear, the overreaching atmosphere has changed for the better since the mayor has changed and new chief has been hired. But the lines have been moving again lately. Specifically, it appears the lines have moved on who gets to decide who is chosen to be the executive director of the CPOA. Is it the Police Oversight Board or is it the City Council? Okay. The purpose of the CPOA, POB, is to issue independence as it relates to civilian complaints, serious use of force, officer-involved shootings, training, research, policy matters, and community input regarding APD. Polarizing this effort, if allowed, will be its demise, such as a change would defeat and the desired effect to bring the community and the police department closer together around constitutional community policing. Ed Harness has been the executive director of the CPOA for over 3 years. The POB has chosen Mr. Harness because of his exceptional value and experience. His references were impeccable, stressing his fairness and commitment and determination. Join a finish.
Mr. President,
Councilor Benton.
as chair of the POB, I would suggest we hear the chair finish out his statement. I know that you're speaking on behalf of the board.
Well,
I know you have board members as well, so.
Yeah, I can finish. Thank you.
Go and proceed.
Council. He has been a police officer, and he also is a lawyer. Being a lawyer was a required qualification of his position. He also had experience with police oversight as a volunteer in this community. His references are impeccable, stressing his fairness, commitment, and determination. Based on his very favorable, inclusive annual evaluation and his job performance, his innovation, and his support from the community, we made the right choice. And more recently, when we unanimously recommended his renewal of his contract to the council, that was last June. It is November. He is now working without a contract due to delays by this council. As a board, it is our belief that this counter to the CASA and the ordinance and the desire of the POB to whom he reports, it is also not fair to Mr. Harness. The big question is how the Police Oversight Board can maintain independence of the oversight process if the assessment of the executive director performance can be vetoed by the city council, by the council against our recommendation. We ask that you vote to renew Mr. Harness's contract. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Waits, I have one question.
Sure.
In regards to your statement, you said that we were dancing around this issue for the past 4 years. I think we have provided the POB and Mr. Harness the independence that that board has needed to do their job and do it over the last 4 years. No one in this council has ever interfered in the work of the POB. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joanne Fine.
I would add that none of you have done anything but be supportive until we came to this moment in time and relative to renewing the contract. So I do see this, I think the board sees this as an interference with this. We don't understand, though we've had meetings with you, we don't understand why the council is considering not taking our recommendation. We don't understand that at all. And so if it is not what it looks like to us, then we would like to see that in your vote tonight. We'd like to see you support the unanimous choice of the board.
Peter Simonson.
Mr. President, members of the council, again, Peter Simonson on behalf of APD Forward. We also, the APD Forward, would urge you to renew Mr. Harness's contract this evening. I can only echo the comments that others expressed about Mr. Harness's professionalism. We've also found him to be extremely collaborative. He's reached out to us on any number of occasions, and I feel as though our relationship with the civilian police oversight apparatus here in the city of Albuquerque is stronger than it's ever been in my 18 years as executive director for the ACLU. The POB has recognized already, you heard the comments about the unique set of skills that he brings to this position. He's a lawyer, he's a former police officer, he's someone who actually comes from a background of police oversight. We're lucky to have an individual of his caliber actually performing these functions. The POB voted to unanimously support his renewal. For the sake of honoring their independence, that is the POB's independence, as well as for the sake of their commitment as volunteers, I think we sometimes forget that these folks come to us and perform these jobs without any hope or promise of pay, and they devote hours and hours to that work, and they are trying to make the best decisions they can. They have obviously come to feel that Mr. Harness is doing a great job, and from our observation, we would agree. So again, we would urge you to renew his contract. I would also say we understand that the Finance and Government Operations Committee is looking at proposed amendments to the POB ordinance next week. We would love to see those with as much time in advance of that meeting as possible. We'd like to know what is up for consideration so that we can prepare ourselves for comments for that committee meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Benton.
Yeah, and just on that last topic of the review of the current draft of the bill, we just discussed that this afternoon, and you should be getting a copy of that from Mr. Melendres tomorrow, right? Thanks.
Great.
Councilor Borrego.
Mr. Simonson?
Yes.
You mentioned that you represent APD Forward and ACLU. Who are you speaking on behalf of this evening?
I work for the ACLU, which is a member of APD Forward, so I'm here on behalf, I guess, primarily on APD Forward, but
Thank
I
you.
can't take my ACLU hat off, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Judith Minks?
Good evening. Because everything that I would have said has already been said, I'll go ahead and forego my time. I strongly support the renewal of the contract for Mr. Harness. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions regarding the confirmation? Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate everybody who came down and spoke this evening about this issue. And as I was talking with someone earlier today, just before the meeting, and I said, for several years now, at least 3 or 4 years, I haven't heard much about POB or from POB, so I thought everything must be going fine and dandy. And now there are a few things that I have some questions about that I would like some time to discuss and get some clarity on. So at first, I did not support the deferral for this this communication, but I do now, and I guess it wouldn't be proper for me to talk with you. I don't know, maybe it is, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, I just do what they tell me to do. But I guess at this point, I would rather, even if it causes some consternation among people on the board, I would rather take an extra beat, an extra couple weeks, whatever it is, and gain the clarity that would make me comfortable in me moving forward on this. I don't have any axe to grind with Mr. Harness. I certainly appreciate everybody on the board and all of the time that they put into this, but I'm feeling like I'm going to need some more time. So that's it. Thank you.
In needing more time, are you requesting a deferral as part of a motion?
Yes,
Councilor Gibson?
Mr. President, I think I will move a deferral, one month deferral on this, please.
We have a motion and a second for a 1-month deferral on the renewal of contract with Mr. Ed Harness. Councilor Benton? I've seconded that.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Yes, oppose this further deferral of this. It's been deferred for how long now?
Well, the initial deferral was for 90 days.
90 days. So I think if there are any questions, it's incumbent upon ourselves to answer those questions timely. Again, I think we're on, to be considering additional deferrals really puts us on shaky ground with regard to the independence that's required of this body that we're talking about. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Harris.
Oh, no.
Councilor Borrego? Basically, I will support the deferral. I also have some questions, some concerns also regarding the issues. I don't want to bring those up tonight. I think they're just too important. I'll bring one of them up. We look at the CPOA. They've had 15 cases still open from 2015, is what I am hearing. There are still, in 2018, 190 cases that are still open. I'm not sure how true that is, but that is a concern for myself, and I'd like to have those questions answered by Mr. Harness, if not the staff. But there is no way that we are trying to detract from the independence of the POB and the work that they have done. We've all stayed out of their business for the last 3 years that Mr. Harness has been confirmed. I've talked to him maybe just a couple of times, and this was on his confirmation. But again, I think that initially we looked at a 90-day deferral because we were looking at changing the ordinance and making sure that we wanted to make sure that Mr. Harness was comfortable with some of the changes that we were making and that he could work with us and live with them. I mean, we've got to find out if he wants to do the job after we've made these major changes in the ordinance, because there needs to be some changes. I mean, now we're looking at a contract which we can't even vote on. Basically, that's going to go to the HR department. We don't have that authority. We increased the police budget tremendously when we raised the gross receipts taxes by 3/8 of a cent. You know, right now your budget is based on a percentage of what the police budget is. That needs to be looked at, and there will be some changes hopefully also made there. But again, I will support a 1-month deferral. I don't think it creates any problems. Mr. Harness is still in his position, and I'd like that an additional time to hopefully get things worked out with the POB and Mr. Harness. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor for a 30-day deferral of OC8. Those in favor, raise your hand and say yes. Yes. Those opposed? That carries on a 6-3 vote. Okay, let's move on now to item B, that is OC17. That is the selection of the Director of Council Services. I move confirmation of Stephanie Yarra. We have a motion and a second by Council Vice President Harris. And Ms. Yarra is here with us this evening. Would you like to make a couple of comments? And I know your family is here this evening.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I am very honored to accept the appointment as Director of the Council Services Department. I have appreciated all of your mentorship and advice, especially in the last few months. And I am excited to keep working with our excellent and professional council staff to help the council do what's right for our city. Thank you so much. And I just want to mention that members of my family are here tonight. My husband, Mario Vigil, my son, Francisco, my mother, Jeanette Yarra, and my aunt, Rita Baca. Thank you so much.
And thank you for being here. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor for OC-17, confirming Stephanie Yarra as the Director of Council Staff. All those in favor, raise your hand and say yes. Yes. Those opposed say no. Congratulations. Councilor?
And, please.
Yeah, please stand and take a bow. Thank you, Ms. Yarra. Thank you, family members, for being here. I know some of your family came down from Las Vegas, New Mexico, to be with you tonight. Okay, let's move on to item C. That is EC 261, approving a contract for ABQ ID to operate a business acceleration program. I move approval. We have a motion and a second by Councilor Gibson. All those in favor signify by saying yes. Yes, those opposed say no. That passes. We are now on item D, that is EC 264, approving a contract for Creative Startups, formerly Global Center of Cultural Entrepreneurship at 1312 Base Hart Road, Southeast, Albuquerque, New Mexico. I move approval. We have a motion and a second by Council Vice President Harris. Anyone signed up to speak? Okay, any questions? See none, all those in favor signify by saying yes. Yes, those opposed say no. That carries unanimously. We are now under final actions. This is item A. Councilor Jones, Councilor Sanchez. Councilor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to move floor substitute 038, amending Article 12, Section 2 of the City Charter and amending Article 13, Sections 2, 4, 9, and 10 of the City Charter. I move it do pass.
We have a motion and a second by Council Vice President Harris. Are there any questions? Anyone signed up to speak? And this is not going to be deferred. This will be voted on this evening, correct?
Right.
Okay, all those in favor of floor substitute 0-38 signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes, those opposed say no. That passes unanimously. We are now on item B, floor substitute 0-39. That is amending the City of Albuquerque Charter, Chapter 2, Article 4, Part 5, ROA 1994, and Chapter 2, Article 4, Part 8, ROA 1994, opting into local elections. I move it do pass. We have a motion and a second by Council Vice President Harris. Any questions? All those in favor signify by saying yes. Yes, those opposed say no. That carries unanimously. We are now on FSP1, that is adopting propositions to be submitted to the voters at the next special election, local election. proposing to amend Article 16 of the Albuquerque City Charter concerning public financing, and to amend Article 6 of the Albuquerque City Charter concerning charter amendments. I move it do pass. We have a motion and a second. Any questions? See none, all those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes, those opposed say no. That carries unanimously. We are now on item D, that is floor substitute R-83. That is concerning a special municipal election to be held in the city of Albuquerque on February the 5th, 2019, submitting to a vote of qualified registered electors at such special municipal election question and amending the Albuquerque City Charter.
Mr. President.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We got to move the bill first. We have a motion and a second by Councilor Harris. Now, Councilor Gibson.
I'm going to move for a 60-day deferral.
We have a motion and a second for a 60-day deferral. Councilor Gibson, I'd like to know why you want a 60-day deferral.
Well, I understand that the intent has been to put our two items on the two questions on the APS ballot. And given the content of their ballot right now, I see a risk developing from doing that. And so I would prefer for us to have this on our own ballot. This is really, this question is so important that we really need to make sure that voters understand what they're voting on, and that this has nothing to do with the mill levy or raising taxes or anything like that, that this is absolutely critical for the city to conduct future elections.
Thank you. Let me first begin by saying that I cannot support this. We reached out to the Albuquerque Public Schools to form a consolidated election to save the taxpayers' money. And I know that there is a mill levy that is included in the APS election, but I feel very confident that the voters are well informed on what they are voting on. But I would just hate to see two different elections when we can consolidate the election just because they are going to have a mill levy. And I know there was a comment made by the city clerk saying that 1/3 of those ballots are going to be returned with a special election. If we look at the turnout for a city council election, it's a little bit higher during a mayoral election, or a city council race that's even lower, but the APS election turnout is very small. And I would just hate to see us having to spend money for two different elections, because I believe that our voters are informed, and they will make the right decisions based on what's on the ballot for the APS school board election, and also what's on the ballot for the city of Albuquerque. Councilor Davis.
Mr. President, on this point, would you indulge us and ask the city clerk to come join us and give us a brief synopsis of sort of the cost of the elections and sort of where we are in terms of preparation for this potential consolidated election with APS?
Madam Clerk, go and proceed.
Mr. President, councilors. Okay, so I'm sorry, can you?
Of course. Thank you, Ms. Duhigg, and thanks for joining us. Would you give us an update sort of on your office's position on our preparation if we were to move forward with an APS consolidated election, and sort of what's the budget impacts to answer Councilor Gibson's question about, and Councilor Sanchez's question about sort of the cost of the election versus independently versus consolidated? What's our best route here, in your opinion?
I think our best approach is to have the city's questions be on its own ballot and kind of be assessed by the voters on its own merits. As for the financial impact of it,
And Mr. President, Madam Clerk, I think what I'm referring to, I think you and I discussed a few minutes ago, you sent me some notes about we have budgeted X number of dollars this year for an election, and either option would fall into that budget. Is that correct?
Exactly. If we were to do a special election on our own, that cost at the very most, assuming a 100% return rate, which is very, very unlikely, would be about $860,000. Combining that with what the city will be paying to opt into the Local Election Act will still come in under what was originally budgeted for the 2019 election. So even doing our own special election, the city will be spending less than has been budgeted for an election, assuming that we were not opting into the Local Election Act.
Madam Clerk, I have a question, and that is in reference to you going to APS and asking for a consolidated election. You know, you supported it before, now you're saying it's not the wise thing to do.
And Mr. President, and I have to apologize because I take complete blame for jumping the gun on that. There are changes that are going to be being made in Santa Fe to the Local Election Act that I think could have a significant impact on this election. And I think that the wiser or the more cautious approach for the city to take is to have those changes go through and then have our election after that takes place so that we can make sure that everyone who is entitled to vote gets a chance to participate.
Have you talked to anyone from APS to move their election so we could have a consolidated election?
I have. I spoke with Scott Elder, and it's not possible for them to move theirs. For various reasons, they have to have theirs now.
Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. And the council president pointed out how we were reached out to APS. I think also we were thinking about doing a charter amendment, I think last year. Councilor Davis and I reached out to APS, and they informed us that they wanted us to pay for 2/3 of the election back then. I guess my question is, when APS passed their resolution, did they contemplate that it was going to be a joint election with the city of Albuquerque?
They did not, no. That was something that the county clerk had advised both us and APS to do, and they did not include any of that language in their resolution.
Okay, well, I'm going to have some more things to say about APS and my belief about how they're not good partners in general, but and how they have way too much land that they need to sell. They don't need to be raising taxes, and I really don't want us on that ballot. But that's a discussion I'm going to be making.
Are there any other questions? We have a motion and a second for deferral of floor substitute R-83. All those in favor, raise your hand and say yes. Yes. Those opposed? No. That fails on a 2-7 vote. Okay, we are now on item E. Now that's Councilor Borrego. Floor substitute O-18.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. President, I'm sorry. So floor substitute O-18 is amending 98-99 ROA 1994 and section 8-2-60 ROA 1994 to add or increase the amount of a fine associated with a littering offense. I move a do pass.
We have a motion and a second by Council Vice President Harris for floor substitute O-18. Has anyone signed up to speak? Any questions from this council? Councilor Borrego to close.
I urge your support.
We have a motion and a second for approval of floor substitute O-18. All those in favor signify by saying yes. Yes. Those opposed say no. That carries unanimously. We are now on item G. Councilor Pena, R-94.
Thank you, Mr. President. R-94 is approving an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Albuquerque and Bernalillo County. What this does is this is actually, did I read the right one? Yeah. What this does is this actually adds 2 voting members from APS to the ABCGC. You know, we've talked about this for a long time, especially when we're trying to deal with and work with the issues in terms of the behavioral health and the substance abuse in our community. As you know, APS has over, I think, 90,000 students. Is that what they're at? And, you know, they have a lot of issues in terms of in terms of these issues, and I think it's an important partnership that we need to create. I know that the Bernalillo County just voted on it, I think, at their last meeting, and they voted to approve them as being members. In addition to that, obviously, I think it's a larger agency than the City of Albuquerque. I'm not even sure what their budget is, but you know, I think better collaboration, some of the concerns as even Councilor Harris just described, some of the gaps in communication, I think this would go a long way in terms of creating that partnership moving forward.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Anyone signed up to speak? Councilor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. There are several things about this that disturb me. First of all, it's voting about the use of city and county tax money of which no APS money is put into this. I'm really concerned that we would be giving them a vote on a board that appropriates money for behavioral health. I understand it would be nice if they sat in on the meeting and gave their opinion. I see no problem with that at all. But a vote doesn't seem right unless they are willing to let one of us serve on their board and make decisions about how they do their business. They do take in a huge amount of tax money. If I might be wrong on this, but it's probably greater than the city of Albuquerque takes in. Twice as much as the city of Albuquerque takes in. So why are we being asked to be put in a position where we give them a vote? Granted, we would like their suggestions and their ideas about how this is used in the schools, which we have always taken. And I believe that's done on the Community Schools Board, in which everyone participates. I think we already have a board in place. I am absolutely opposed to giving APS a vote on this board and committee, which affects behavioral health when they have no skin in the game, so to speak. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Benton, and then Councillor Borrego.
So, yeah, the behavioral health is one, certainly an issue that the city and the county really for the first time in recent memory really come together on something really of major significance to the community. And that's been some good work that was done. This board, this intergovernmental commission is sort of the eyes and ears of the administration of that behavioral health initiative. So that's an important point that Councilor Jones just made. I think that the larger point is that the county commission and the city of Albuquerque are governing bodies of municipalities. Yes, we have some overlap between the city of the county and the city, but these are our two governing authorities, provide police and fire services, all the basic services of a municipal or urban county, which is what we are. I don't dispute in any way that we can do a better job of having communication with APS, and we've got to do that. There's been a lot of discussion about that when we were talking about the impact fee that they had, et cetera, et cetera. There's also been a bunch of discussion lately on our Metropolitan Transportation Board as to whether they should have more seats on the board. They do have a seat on the board, but they wanted multiple seats on the board. And the argument was sort of somewhat the same, that we have a giant budget and we serve a lot of people, but at the same time, everyone else, or most of the other entities on that board are representing municipalities that provide transportation services, not just leasing school buses. So this does concern me. I think the commonalities between the city and the county are such that this board is a good venue for discussion. It's not really a decision-making board, it's a recommending board, but that also concerns me. We're now going to have one more entity that if a recommendation is made, we're going to have the support of 3 boards instead of 2, and that does concern me.
Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I think anybody who's paying attention in the city or the county of Bernalillo County would know that we don't have and have not had a good relationship with APS for a very long time. And I can't speak for the county, but I wouldn't be surprised if that didn't bleed over to them too. I don't know. So I think there's a lot of work that can be done there. And I would like to be a part of that, frankly. But I'm not convinced that ABCGC is the forum for that, because, you know, it's in the name, governing bodies. the school board has a whole different look, or you know, whole different perspective. You know, they run schools. So, and I appreciate, I mean, I don't really understand everything that I probably should, but I would be willing to learn and to try to figure out how we can come together on some issues. The one place that we do a really good job is on ABC Community Schools. That's one of the best things I think that the city of Albuquerque does for the kids of Albuquerque in the schools of Albuquerque, and that's a very good partnership. But I do not believe that ABC GC is the forum for this to happen. So, but I would very much like to, you know, work on finding something else, putting something else together where council and maybe the administration as well as APS officials could come together and talk about other things besides education. Thank you.
Council Vice President Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. And, you know, getting into my earlier comments, you know, I've had, my dealings with APS have been, for the most part, negative. They have land in the district, and they just don't want to do anything with it except allow it to be a nuisance. And it doesn't matter who talks to them about it or why, they just want to hold on to it. But at the same time, they want to go to the voters and say, let's raise your taxes, when all they have to do is sell the land that they refuse to even look after. That serves no purpose other than to make my constituents mad at me for not convincing APS that they should do something with their land. Besides that, this board, the ABCGC, right now we're involved in some very important things, and we're actually making some progress for the first time on a unified dispatch. We're actually moving forward and seeing how we can make that happen, which is a really important public safety issue for the city of Albuquerque and County of Bernalillo. Looks like we're getting the administration and the county administration to start really working together and considering that. We also have an issue about land and mobile radio and a significant amount of work that needs to be done there to improve that system for the public safety of the city of Albuquerque and the County of Bernalillo. As we talked about the behavioral health initiative and in terms of looking at maybe some sort of unified campus and going forward. I just don't see how Albuquerque Public Schools really has much say or much interest in how that is going to go forward and why they would vote. And if we were moving on something which has been delicate over years, like this dispatch, for instance, why would and how would the Albuquerque Public Schools weigh in on that, and why would they, and what would their interest be, except now we'd have to convince them on something that they really doesn't involve them. So for a lot of reasons, this is something that I'm not in favor of. I think the Albuquerque Bernalillo Community Schools, I think that's something that perhaps that could be expanded, because Albuquerque Public Schools is about education. They're about kids. They're about educating children. And there's not really any part of their charter that I know of in terms of actually running government beyond that. And perhaps if there's any opportunity for coordination, it should be through the community schools, and maybe we can expand that somehow.
Councilor Borrego.
Thank you, Mr. President. The staff analysis mentions that this item was placed on the 11-13 agenda for the County Commission and the 11-15 agenda for the ABCGC. And I just wondered how what the result of those meetings were. And also, I guess I'd like to ask maybe the maker of the motion if maybe this item could be deferred until we get a little more information, if we don't have that
Councilor Pena.
Thank you, Mr. President. Interesting dialogue. I didn't really realize that there would be so much controversy on this one, you know, because I think what we're trying to do here is kind of just establish coordination, collaboration, and partnerships. Again, as you stated, I mean, those are obviously clear things that, you know, I didn't necessarily take into consideration about the voting on the behavior health. As you all know, the ABCGC was initially formed just as a partnership between the city and the county to really talk about issues that were important to both entities. Yes, thank you, Councillor Gibson, to both entities. And you know, and really, the behavioral health issue has just kind of arisen in the last couple of years that we made that a part of the ABCGC in terms of the voting. And you know, if there's concern about them voting on the behavioral health stuff, maybe there's something that we can add in terms of them not being able to vote on those things. But as you stated, Councillor Benton, it's really a recommending body. And you know, as everyone has spoken and talked about all these issues that they have with APS, I think this is a great opportunity to work through those. You look at APS, they're actually the largest developer in the city of Albuquerque, and we're looking for how we create economic development, how we partner. I know there's issues in terms of how you access schools, where the next schools are going to be. I think this would be a great avenue to have those conversations in terms of planning, in terms of police. They have their own police department. How do we coordinate with them? I think there was discussion about purchasing those radios and really using a centralized system that would work for everybody so that the communication is there. In terms of transportation, I know one of the big issues is that, you know, how do we coordinate getting children to and from school, especially the high school students? How can we partner in terms of the connections of giving kind of passes for the kids to be able to ride the bus. And so anyway, I just think that if, you know, the behavioral health stuff is the issue in terms of them voting, because everything else we do is really just dialogue about partnerships and coordination for many of our efforts. So I see this body as that perfect way of doing that. The behavioral health just happened to slide into that because it made sense at the time. And then there was one other thing I was going to add to that. And, you know, and if we're not having that discussion with APS, and yes, they're there to educate our students, I understand that, but there's this whole other aspect to them that I think that it behooves us to overlook that. So.
Councillor Benton?
And you know, I did vote for this when it was brought up at the ABCGC without having given it a whole lot of a thought, honestly. And since then, I have come up with some of these concerns. And just looking at the intergovernmental agreement and the original language in the intergovernmental agreement, and again, it's a government commission. And again, APS is not a government. It is a school district with a governing board. That was formed in 1999 to promote coordination and cooperation between the city and the county. And I think that 1999 date is not coincidental. That's the time when we were discussing consolidation between the city and the county. And that failed twice when put to a public vote. Could be argued as to how those votes were structured with their outcome. But nonetheless, this came about during a time of a lot of discussion about how we work together or don't work together, and where the gaps are and how we need to try to fill them. I've served on the body quite often over the years. I think not my entire time on the council, but a lot of it. And we had these, you know, very robust and sometimes very contentious discussions about things like the fire alarm, the fire dispatch, the alarm room, and the fact that the county has a separate 911 response to fire and emergency services than does the city, and we do our best to coordinate those, but they're not even sitting in the same room when they receive a 911 call. So, and when 911 calls come in, there are a lot of confusion about who should answer them and so forth. So that's exactly the kind of thing we need to be doing. I do strongly believe that we've got to figure out a better way to communicate with APS. I'm just not convinced this is the venue. And community schools sort of sounds like the venue, or maybe we need to rebrand that in a way that makes it a board, that we want to be supportive of APS. We want it, well, obviously, as a community, we want the success of APS in educating our children. And I do support them, and they struggle sometimes, and we understand those dynamics of families and so forth, why the community schools is such a good effort. But this does concern me with regard to essentially saying that they're a third government in our community. They are not.
Councillor Winter and former APS superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Yeah, that's the elephant in the room here. I don't know if, Councillor Sanchez, you may remember that, Mr. Rael, years and years ago, there was a better option that we used to do. We used to have a meeting, some of you may remember, with the school board, with the city council, with the county commission, with the University of New Mexico Regents, and we met, I don't know if it was quarterly, we met quarterly where we'd get in a room and then everybody would hash out the issues they had with each other. The problem was it wasn't sustainable, and I'm not sure why people just had their own business they had to worry about, but I think that option is a better option. Then you can all sit around a table and bring what your issues are. Suggestion.
And I'd like to make a couple of comments on this initiative. I do support the resolution. Dr. Piercy, the president of the Albuquerque School Board, was at both meetings when both bodies wanted to take it to their respective boards. This is basically focused on behavioral health, and there is no boundaries when it comes to behavioral health. APS, the city of Albuquerque, Bernalillo County, the state of New Mexico, and we're facing some major challenges. When we hear at these meetings that a lot of these individuals are young kids that are in the Albuquerque public school system that are dealing with family members, parents, and also mental health problems, homelessness. I think it's a problem that we all need to be engaged in and involved with. Your idea may be a great idea, Councillor Winter, but if APS is willing to work with the city and the county in addressing some of these critical issues in our community, I have to support this. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. Have they indicated that they're interested in serving on this board, and if so, in what capacity?
They were interested, and they would appoint 2 members of...
2 members?
Correct.
So it's an equal board?
Well, basically, they would have 2 votes. And hopefully, because of the issues that we're dealing with are so intense that, hopefully they would support what we are trying to do, because we take a lot of our recommendations from the task force that brings the issues to the committee. But I think a lot of good work has been done. I know that Mayor Keller is also very supportive of the work that's been done by ABCGC and the task forces working with these initiatives. But again, I just feel this is too critical, too important. And I don't have a problem that it's a taxpayer's money that we are spending, whether it's APS board members, Albuquerque City Councilors, or Bernalillo County Commissioners that are voting on this, that we make the right decisions.
Thank you, if I may, Mr. President.
Go and proceed.
I agree, it's the Albuquerque's tax money, but they vote for different people to represent them in different areas, and they vote for APS to vote for them when they do vote, which isn't that often, on the APS school board, and they vote for city councilors and county commissioners for different issues. I am still adamantly opposed to this. I think it sends the wrong message, and if APS would like to meet with us, I think the city council would be very open, any or all of us, to sit down and discuss their issues with them. Thank you.
Is there any comments from the administration?
Council President Sanchez, are you sure? No, just kidding. Obviously, this is a policy decision before the council and yours to make. As the person who sits on the ABCGC as the mayor's representative, I think the devil is in the details. So the idea that they would be voting on, for example, combining 911 dispatch doesn't quite sit right with me. I don't understand why they would have that level of input, even on a recommendation basis, on things that are ours. On the other hand, it I think would come down to the memorandum of understanding that brought them in, or amendments to the bylaws or the governing documents. So I would just say that if you do decide to vote in favor of this, that we make sure that the input is limited, and that also we get a say in their behavioral health programs so that we can really make sure that that coordination is happening, because I don't think it would be fair to have to run our programs through that commission and not theirs.
Thank you, Ms. Nair. Councillor Jones.
That opens up a whole new territory. Thank you, Ms. Nair. So does that mean that if we sit down and meet with APS, we might be able to use their facilities for after-school daycare for our children, as opposed to locking them up at 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon? I'm just throwing that out there for us to think about, because if they're such a good partner in this, one would think they have facilities that we, the taxpayers, are paying for, that they would be willing to let us use for that, as opposed to building new community centers. Not very many. New community centers. They have great facilities. They certainly have classrooms that children could be comfortable in. If we do that, if we're cooperating with them in that area, we now won't lose as many children after school. They'll be comfortable. Their parents will leave them there. We can offer some education. We can offer fun daycare. We can feed them as we do in our facilities, but it would simply expand the number we can serve, and of course, safe facilities that we're already paying for.
Okay, Councillor Gibson and then Councillor Borrego.
So the more we talk about this, the more it sounds like we're really trying to fit a round cylinder into a square hole. It doesn't fit. So why don't we just resolve to create something brand new that will accommodate exactly what the intent is, so that we can talk through issues. But introducing APS, which is not a governing board, to a board that is comprised of two governing boards, just makes it, I don't know, it's just incongruent. There's a better way to do this. Why are we so, and why is the, and really, I guess this is really a question, why does it have to be ABCGC? And that's all I have.
Councillor Borrego.
Again, I would throw out the idea of deferral on this with the maker of the motion, because I think that there are some fundamental issues with regard to the original intent of the intergovernmental or the AG, what is it? I don't even have the acronyms right here. ABC.
ABCGC.
ABC. All right, anyway. I think there's fundamental issues with regard to policy about what the original intent of that board is. And I think that putting, I agree that APS, we need to improve our relationship with, how we deal with APS. But I'm not convinced that this is the right place, or that we've gone into the original intent of what this board was. So I just think from a policy standpoint, I think, maybe we need to look at it a little bit more clearly and just determine if this is the appropriate place. So.
Councillor Pena.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, as you can see from all the dialogue here, my mere intent was to really try to start the dialogue between and create partnerships. I know that when, we've talked about partnering with the county, there's been a lot of resistance in terms of partnering with the county as well, because the county does this or the county does that and we do this. And one of the things that I can say for the partnership that I've created with Commissioner Quesada on the county side, it's really working out well, because we really both have some overlapping boundaries, and our constituency and the issues. If you know my district, you know that, one side of the road could be county and one side could be city of Albuquerque. So creating that dialogue and that partnership is just only it only makes for better governments. So, yes, Councillor Borrego, and I recognize that I didn't answer your question a while ago. It was passed unanimously by the ABCGC board, and it was passed by Bernalillo County. But yeah, I would move to defer it and see if we could make it a better, change some of the language in the original, maybe have them as advisory instead. But I think even more based on the conversation we've had here today, and talking about how, we don't. It sounds like we don't get along with APS. I think it's important that we open that dialogue. I don't have the numbers, but I know, in terms of the homeless population, how many children that we have that are homeless within APS. The number is pretty staggering, so having them in and being able to hear from them, I think it would be amazing. And in terms of any of the other issues, I mean, if we do create an advisory, I think we need to have that input. I think that's how we move forward as a city. So with that, I would move deferral.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for deferral. Councillor Gibson.
Just one last thing, and this isn't just rhetorical. Why does it need to be ABCGC? If sponsor could answer that?
Mr. President.
Councillor Pena, go and proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Obviously, if we can change some of the language to include them, I think that would be a great avenue, but I guess it doesn't necessarily have to be. That's not what my deferral is saying. I'm just saying that obviously it's not going to be supported in the fashion that it is presented today, so have to look at it and see if we can make some changes that would be more amenable to everybody, or maybe we do look at it in a different way. I appreciate Councillor Winter's suggestion about just creating, having a sit down, but I think it has to be a little more formal than that, because people, after a while, just don't attend or don't take it as seriously, or different administrations come around and it's not as important. But I really think that it's paramount that we partner and talk with APS.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for deferral of R-94. All those in favor, raise your hand and say yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I'm
That's
sorry.
3 votes.
Can you tell us how long you would like that deferral?
Maybe 60 days?
Okay, that is for a 60-day deferral. All those in favor signify by saying yes and raise your hand. Yes? Those opposed? That fails on a 6-3 vote. Okay, we are back on the bill. Councillor Pena to close.
I urge your support.
We have a motion and a second on the floor for approval of R-94. All those in favor signify by saying yes. Yes? Those opposed? That fails on a 2-7 vote. We are now on item H, Councillor Borrego, R-95.
Thank you, Mr. President. R-95 is urging the New Mexico State Legislature to conduct a study of options put forward in the New Mexico Health Security Act, and to support passage of the Health Security Act during the 2019 legislative session. I move a do pass.
We have a motion and a second on the floor by Councillor Benton.
Mr.
Councillor
President,
Borrego?
there are people in the audience, I believe, that would like to speak.
They are signed up to speak. That is correct. The first speaker is Reverend Roger Powers. Next speaker will be Esther Grego, Mary Fieldbloom, Malik, I can't pronounce that last name, Al-Guakmi, and Gwen Maley, and Daniel Soria. Once your name has been called, you may come to the front, take a seat, and be prepared to speak. Reverend Powers, go and proceed.
Mr. President and council members, I'm the pastor at St. Andrew Presbyterian Church and a leader with Albuquerque Interfaith, and I speak in favor of Resolution 95 in support of the Health Security Act. I believe we have a moral responsibility to care for one another, to love our neighbors as ourselves, but I fear as a nation we are losing that sense of mutual care and responsibility for one another. Here in New Mexico, people die each year from treatable diseases because they don't have health insurance and can't afford to see a doctor. In most cases, these people have chronic illnesses and have too much money to qualify for Medicaid, but too little money to pay for the medicine and treatment that they need to stay alive. So they fall through the cracks. Now, I imagine that most of you on the City Council have good health insurance and the personal financial resources to pay for medical bills that your insurance doesn't cover. I do as well. We're fortunate. But what about those who don't have access to good health care, who don't have good health insurance, who don't have the funds to pay for medical bills? Try to put yourself in their shoes for a moment. What's it like to be ill or injured but be reluctant to seek medical care for fear of what it may cost you? What's it like to have to choose between buying food and buying medicine? What's it like to receive the medical care you need only to go bankrupt as a result? These are the real-life dilemmas faced by thousands of our fellow New Mexicans all across the state. There's a consistent moral standard that is found in all the world's major religions. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. You and I value access to affordable health care for ourselves and for our families. We should want the same for everyone else in New Mexico. Thank you.
Esther Griego, followed by Mary Feldbaum and Malik Ogwasi.
Good evening. I am an elder with St. Andrew Presbyterian Church, and I'm a leader with Albuquerque Interfaith. And I'd like to, first of all, thank each one of you for the time you have afforded me to allow me to explain the Health Security Act and the importance of passing this bill at the 2019 legislative session. We are all part of a historical event. We will be the first state that will offer its citizens a health care plan that they can have for themselves, a plan that is for New Mexicans and administered by New Mexicans. It is a plan with a comprehensive health benefits package, including mental health. Think of your constituents and the hard decisions that they have to make on a daily basis. Do they pay the rent this month? Do they buy food for their families? Do they have to dig as deep as they can to pay for an expensive medical procedure? These situations cause bankruptcies and homelessness. I urge you to pass this bill, to say yes to this resolution, and help provide health care for all New Mexicans. And I thank Councilor Borrego for sponsoring this bill, and I thank all of you for all the work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Griego. Mary Feldblum, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. My name is Mary Feldblum, and I am the executive director of the Health Security for New Mexicans campaign, which is probably the largest coalition ever existing in New Mexico. We are 162 organizations, and one of the most recent ones is the Madrid Volunteer Firefighters Association. It's quite varied, is this coalition. And the legislation that will be introduced this session is the product of 20 years' work. People have had input over 20 years with this plan that is what I would say is now smothered in green and red chili. There is nothing like it, and it is well worth beginning the process for doing a fiscal analysis to see if it indeed is fiscally viable, and then proceed with the development of the plan. I am here to, and I want to thank Councilor Borrego for introducing this resolution, and I am here to answer questions. I was here before this council in 1996 when you were there as a councilor, And it passed. And in fact, 35 cities and counties have passed this at a bipartisan level, and the most recent one is the County Council in Los Alamos this past week that just passed a resolution in support. So I thank you, and I'm here to answer any specific questions, since I probably am the person in this audience that is most intimate with all the details of this legislation. Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Winter.
Mr. President, I do have a couple questions. First one, has the legislation, ma'am, excuse me.
Ms. Feldblum?
Has the legislation already been written? Is that legislation available for public viewing now?
Counselor, it's being reworked. The 2017 version is the one that we're working on, and there are some changes to it. It will likely be pre-filed, and that process starts December 15th. To be available. But the 2017 version, and on our website we have a table of contents and an index to walk you through it. There are three big changes in that bill. One is the fiscal analysis part, which is at the end of the bill, is now going to be in the beginning, so people understand that this is phase one. The second, there has been a reworking of the behavioral health section in the bill, and third, there is an appropriation of $300,000 to allow the LFC to hire the expertise. Those are the three major changes.
Mr. President, so there has not been a financial impact done on the bill yet?
It would, the reason it would, no, because there was actually no appropriation in 2017. There can't be a financial impact on the bill because what has to happen, we do not know what we're spending on health care in this state. In order to project an alternative, you have to know what you're spending now. And so that is what the fiscal analysis is requiring, is that you do a health expenditure, find out what we're spending, and then through modeling, project. So there would not be possible for for legislative finance and analysts to actually do an analysis of the cost of this bill because they don't have the data.
Mr. President, also, so what is the process and what are you asking? Are you asking us to support the concept? Are you asking us to support the bill?
We would love it for you to support the bill and to work for its passage.
But how can we support something we haven't seen and we have no
Mr. Chair.
physical impact on it? That's what I'm a little concerned.
The fiscal impact, Counselor, would be the $300,000. And the bill clearly lays out a fiscal analysis section. So nothing is created, nothing is set up until the legislature has had that fiscal analysis report to say this is a go-ahead.
Mr. President, one more question.
Go ahead, proceed.
So for this legislative session, though, are you asking for the legislature to get all the information and pass this at this session? So you're going to try to do the impact analysis, get it written all during this session?
No, the first phase that's in this bill is saying that the Legislative Finance Committee must perform a fiscal analysis, which includes collecting data of what we're spending on healthcare, which we do not know, and other factors. That will probably take a year to do. And then once there is a provision in the bill that the legislature is going to have to say, oh, this is a go, now we'll set up the structure of this bill. But the fiscal analysis cannot be in the abstract. It has to be an analysis of what this plan is. You can't just cost out something out of the blue. What would it look like? And that's what the bill does. It tells you what this plan would look like, who would be covered, how it would be administered, what coverage it would have, and that's what any analyst, in my background, I'm a social scientist. My PhD is in sociology and economics, and I directed Hofstra's Institute of Applied Social Science, and I'm very well aware of the methodologies and how different states and different think tanks have come up with analyses of how you would project a program such as this one, and that's what this sets up.
Mr. President,
Go ahead, proceed.
What if the financial impact, it doesn't work, it doesn't play out?
Mr. President and Councilor, then nothing will happen. As one of the sponsors said, then maybe we have to make adjustments to the plan. But nothing is going to be set up until the legislature says this looks like it's affordable. We have had 2 studies in New Mexico, one in 1994 and the other one in 2007. Both looked at plans in which almost all New Mexicans would be covered under one old-fashioned health risk pool. And both indicated that hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars would be saved within 5 years. If that's the case, then let's find out. Those studies are old, and they certainly were done prior to the Affordable Care Act. So there was no Medicaid expansion at that time. There were no subsidies at that time. So I think it's really important to take a look at the up-to-date information, financial, fiscal information first before proceeding.
Any other questions by this council? Councillor Borrego to close.
Urge your support.
We have a motion and a second for approval of R-94. All those in favor, raise your hand and say yes. Yes. Those opposed? That carries unanimously. We are now on the last item on the agenda. That is item I, and that is by request R-97. That is adopting a vision statement, revised 5-year goals for the city of Albuquerque, and adopting desired community conditions for each goal. I move to do pass.
Mr. President, I'm sorry to interrupt. I believe there was a floor amendment for that last item that didn't get moved. If the sponsor would like to open that back up.
I'd like to move for
We
reconsideration.
have a motion and a second for reconsideration of R-95. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. Those opposed? Okay, let's move back to the amendment.
I move floor amendment number 1.
We have a motion and a second for floor amendment number 1. Did you want to read that into the record?
I think it wasn't my amendment. I just saw it. It was actually Councilor Borrego's amendment. If she wants to, I think it was, right? Let me get the amendment for the last bill. Let me
We're
get
back on the last bill?
Back in the last bill, and there's an amendment that we missed.
And there was an amendment to the bill. Amendment number 1 to R-95.
I'll get it up in just a second. Okay, I have a floor amendment number 1. It says here was the sponsoring council of the bill, but maybe not the amendment. This amendment proposes to replace the following sections on page 3, lines 17 to 28, delete and replace as follows. Section 1, the Albuquerque City Council urges the New Mexico State Legislature to conduct a study of options for health care for all that are being put forward in the New Mexico Health Security Act. Section 2, the Albuquerque City Council supports a request to our New Mexico Legislature and our Governor to develop statewide health care for all solutions. Section 3, the Albuquerque City Council supports and endorses the Health Care Act and supports its passage during the 2019 legislative session. Section 4, the Albuquerque City Council urges the New Mexico Municipal League to support the Health Security Act during the 2019 legislative session. Section 5, the city clerk will send a letter and an email to each member of our state legislature delegation urging the consideration of the Health Security Act in the 2019 with a copy of this resolution.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for amendment number 1 to R-95.
Mr. President,
Councilor Gibson.
if I may, could I just ask the, what the purpose is, what we were trying to fix?
I just saw it in the packet.
Councilor Borrego.
And it was Councilor
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Sorry, I know what it is. It's, the amendments are actually being recommended to match the title because the title was incorrect. So that was why that amendment came forward. Thank you, Councilor Harris, for picking that up.
I apologize also because there were still other people that were signed up to speak on this item. Let's go and hear them first. Malik Al-Jawasmi, followed by Gwen Malley, followed by Daniel Surya. My apologies, go and proceed.
It's all right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, members of the council, for letting me speak for 2 minutes. My name is Malik Al-Kawasmi, and I'm a biology student at the University of New Mexico, and I'm a senior student. I'm also a pre-med student, meaning that I'm going to apply to be a physician one day and hopefully get that dream fulfilled for me. I want to tell you a story today. It's a story about when I worked as a scribe at the Presbyterian Hospital Emergency Department. And what a scribe does is he works with a doctor to help give him more time to spend with the patient. And one day we had a patient who seemed to complain of everything. The doctor would ask him, "Sir, do you have abdominal pain?" I would say, "Yes." "Do you have a headache?" He would say, "Yes." Is your arm causing you pain?" I would say, "Yes, yes, yes," to everything. And so the doctor looked at me strangely, went outside for a second, and then came back and asked him, "Sir, are you here because you need medical service, or because you need a place to stay for the night and sleep?" And he said, "Because I need to stay and sleep." And so the doctor told me, "Okay, Malik, go get this patient a sandwich, apple juice, and make him comfortable so that he can sleep for the night." That story touched me, and it changed the way I perceive a physician's job to be. It's more about helping the patient and not the disease or the symptoms. I believe that the Health Security Act for New Mexico is going to help physicians better serve their patients, and it's going to help reduce the costs of healthcare in this state. And I think it's going to reduce the number of people who will suffer from what that patient suffered from. I urge you all to support this for the patient, for the people of the state, and for future physicians like me. Thank you.
Thank you, Malik. Gwen Maley. And the last speaker will be Daniel Soria. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the council. I am also a student at UNM, majoring in biology and psychology. One day I want to go to medical school, hopefully at UNM. About a month ago, I went to a bill workshop on the Health Security Act, where I learned about the Health Security Act and how it will improve healthcare in New Mexico. I want to express my support for the Health Security Act from the perspective of a future physician. I appreciate that the Health Security Act will provide universal coverage to all New Mexicans. Multiple insurance networks provide challenges to physicians. One plan for all New Mexicans would be more efficient for physicians. The Health Security Act also allows for freedom of choice of doctors, so patients are not restricted by networks. I'm originally from California, but the Health Security Act would make me want to stay in New Mexico as a practicing physician in the future. I urge your support. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for being here. Daniel Soria will be our last speaker.
Hi, good evening, Council President, Council. Thanks for hearing me out tonight. Everyone touched on what I was going to talk about, so I'll try to keep it short. Like them, I am also interested in studying medicine as a physician, hopefully. I've had a strong interest in healthcare since I was diagnosed as a type 1 diabetic when I was pretty old. So I have a very intimate relationship with the healthcare system and doing research and things like that. They've said everything before, but I think one thing that I want to touch on is that I've had some experiences with dealing with insurance networks. Whenever I turned 18, there was like some miscommunication between networks and things like that when going from a pediatrician to an adult endocrinologist. And for a long time, because of the networks, I had a lot of trouble trying to find a physician. And so there was fear that I wouldn't have any supplies, and it became an emergency after a while. Luckily, I found a physician. I'm still here. But like Gwen said earlier, one of the benefits of the Health Security Act is that it gets rid of those insurance networks. And that would really benefit the patients because they don't have to go through what I did. It would also benefit the physicians as well as any healthcare workers because it improves the way it works. They don't have to deal with seeing if any treatments or procedures will work for the patient. And like Malik said, it would just overall improve the care a physician delivers. Anyway, you guys' support really means a lot. You guys will be doing the right thing. Again, I'm also interested in being a physician in the future. I have had medical school interviews at other places out of the state, but honestly, this is one of the things that is incentivizing me and many other students to stay in New Mexico. Thanks.
Thank you for being here. And we are back on the bill with the amendment to R-95. Councilor Borrego.
Yes, I urge your support. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for floor amendment number 1 to R-95. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes, those opposed. That carries unanimously. We are back on the bill. Councilor Harris.
And just to be clear about my vote, what it means, I've met with the people who are supporting this legislation, and I'm interested in, if it's possible, other states have tried other types of healthcare for all measures, and they've proven to be grossly expensive, and they've often had to be sort of abandoned. So I don't know if this is going to work, but you know, I think we should support efforts to think outside the box and look into things and study it. So my support for this bill is the support for studying it further and seeing if it is really feasible.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. We have a motion and a second on the floor for R-95 as amended. All those in favor signify by saying yes. Yes. Those opposed say no. That carries unanimously. And before we go to the last bill, we are going to take a 5-minute recess.